One of the ways to get recreational value out of your land is having a place for campfires or bonfires. And with the right maintenance, that place can be safe and a good recreational resource. So, hey, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do for campsite maintenance as far as the camp fire area. So, as you may remember from previous videos, the place was forest mulched. And so there's either going to be leaves on the ground, or there's going to be about 2 or 3 inches of wood chips. And those are fire hazards. So while I'm not operating a campsite for the general public, I am operating a campsite for friends and family. And so we have a designated fire area that we are always have the proper water, and we'll have the proper fire equipment in place for it to be used. But what we're working on here is a level area with a pit kind of in the middle for the fire to be burned. And then at the end, I shovel up all these ashes. So you have coals. I shovel up all these coals, kind of redefine the pit. And I'll tell you why that pit's important here in a little bit. The coals go into the wheelbarrow, and then I take them up and over the way to the little composting area where they're going to get combined with either human manure on site, or vegetable waste, or any kinds of bulk manures or bulk waste on the property, so that we can start creating what's called biochar. Now, adding charcoal to compost is not really that useful if the compost is still very green and it hasn't decomposed, because the carbon in the charcoal, while it'll absorb the nitrogen that's necessary to make the composting activities work. So it's just an example of cycling nutrients. So we have a bonfire here. We have a little designated place where wood will come in, and we try to keep that wood dry. Now, we were doing some primitive cooking, and so we had a fire. You probably saw that a couple videos ago, and then a little area for our coals on the side. I'm going to dig this out as kind of another rectangle, but it's always going to have a basin. Now, why do we do that? Well, if it's raining outside and the fire pit is literally a pit, it'll actually accumulate water, and it'll keep that little area extra safe from expanding. We also want to have a fire pit or a designated burn area, because all these coals and stuff, if someone drives back here and they see this, they may think it's okay to burn, not realizing that we have a procedure before we start camping here. So you might notice how everything's raked all around this area. It's all kind of raked out. Now, the basin that I'm going to dig out, which doesn't require a lot of effort, is actually going to be a level basin. So I'm going to have a little berm on the bottom side here, so that when water fills it up, it just stays full. And then I'll keep behind any wood like this, because this wood is usually the foundation of the next fire. But can you see what I'm doing here? I have a procedure or an approach for maintaining this rather than just a burn pile. I do this for 3 very important reasons. Number 1, a clean campfire site, whether you have your cousins, your uncles, your parents, your sisters, your brothers out here camping, a clean site will stay that way, because they won't have the inclination to throw trash in it or to otherwise leave it a mess. I'm setting expectations in how I'm managing it. Number 2, there's a legitimate fire risk. Not too many feet from this designated fire area is scrub brush woods, or piles of brush, or other combinations thereof. So I don't want to have a fire break out and burn up my property. And number 3 is, if they know I'm watching, if they know I'm going to come through and check on stuff, if I'm maintaining it myself or have someone on my team maintaining it, then I know it's going to be done in a quality way. So, for example, over time, we want to build out a big level area here and a campfire in the middle. And then that level area will be elevated to a point where you can come in right off the road there, have a nice little place to sit and camp. You can set up a pup tent over here or something, or you can set up a dining fly, and everybody kind of gets the idea. There's clues in the environment that this is a campsite or this is a fire ring. That reinforces not setting fires elsewhere on the property, because there's no open burning on this particular property, because we don't want to burn the woods down. Another thing too is that I'm cleaning this out. I could just leave it and then every time there's a fire, they'll just keep putting a fire on the same pile here. But all that charcoal material is it's going to be bioavailable, mixed with the compost, mixed with the human manure. And again, you don't mix human manure. You're going to layer that in. So I'm going to be putting this in a layer, a very thin layer on top of that. We can do another video on human manure. We don't do a whole lot of that here, but there's no running water on this particular property. The design of where the fire pit went, because you can design this pretty much anywhere, is very close to that utility area that I've talked about in other videos. So we essentially can scoop the material up, put it in a wheelbarrow, wheel it over. It's going to be less than a load of wheelbarrow materials, and then I'm either going to put it in a pile of soil, or a pile of finished compost, or a high nutrient value compost pile. Again, if you put charcoal in a fresh compost pile where you've got your browns and greens and all that stuff going on, it's going to suck up the nitrogen, and the pile is not going to compost as well as you like it to compost. So I hope that's been useful. I'm trying to cover some of these things because, again, a raw piece of land with some access points and a few little nooks is a campsite. And it's just as easy to get, it's hunting season right now. It's just as easy to get out here and camp and hunt, come out here and do some primitive cooking, come out to wherever your property is and start using your property right away. Because one of the things happens, and I've known folks who buy a lot of land from out-of-state owners, is they're going to buy a piece of land, they're never going to use it, and then they're going to sell it cheap. That's good for you because you know how using these methods to conserve ecology, to get good use out of the land, and then to ultimately have a small farm or a homestead. Be sure to ask your questions in the comments below. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. You can visit me at www.prosperityhomestead.org. Be sure to ask your questions, and I'd be more than happy to create custom materials for you to answer specific questions, because I want you to be out here actually doing things rather than sitting around on the YouTubes and not really experiencing this enjoyment and this outdoor. So I'm going to get busy here and fill my wheelbarrow up, probably eat the other half of my sandwich, and just chill and relax. Thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing, thanks for being a part of what we do here. Until the next time, I'll see you later.